family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. I'm your host, Rick Strawn, president of Paradigm Security Services, and we're excited to be with you today on Business RadioX. We're coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. If you would, please hit that subscribe button. Myself and my guests would be appreciated very much. Each week, as you know, we generally deal with featured businesses in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County, with relation to physical security. Now, while all businesses don't have security concerns, and not all are about physical security, or they all have security concerns, we'll touch on a little different area today. I am bringing on she's bringing me on.
Yes, turning the tables.
Yep, Dr. Genie Burnett with the Manna
Scholarship Fund.
And we're going to start something new starting today. I'll have my Case in Point every other week, and Dr. Burnett will have her show,
Food, Faith, and Feelings.
Food, Faith, and Feelings, and this time slot every other Wednesday. And we're kind of partnering up a little bit where she's the nonprofit side, and I'm hoping to be a profit side. But at any rate, I've known Jeannie for a long time. I was on her board for a while. We'll get into all that when she starts slinging mud at me. Talking to me.
Yes.
We're going to do I hope it's an interesting show for everybody. I know it's going to be a challenging show for me. Dr. Burnett she talks and deals with recovery issues.
I'm a psychologist of over 20 years. And although I am just 39, I was like a Doogie Howser for those of you who understand. Well, that dates me too.
Yes, it does.
So I am a psychologist, a licensed clinical psychologist here in Gwinnett County. We have a program under Manna Scholarship Fund called Manna Treatment, where we provide counseling services for people who have life-threatening eating disorders as well as trauma-based disorders. And as a part of this partnership, I thought it would be fun to turn the tables on Rick.
Yeah, I can hardly wait. Been thinking about this for a couple of days, well, a lot more than that since we brought it up. But I'll let you do your thing here, and I'm going to sit back and talk.
Okay, so yes, I get to do what I do best, which is ask people questions
and
listen. Yes, and I will. Sometimes I listen.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. So Rick and I met through the Gwinnett Chamber 10 or 12 years ago.
A long time.
Through a mutual...
You were 12, I think.
Yes. Through a mutual friend, and she suggested that I talk to Rick because of his interesting story. And when you are designing a board, you want people who understand from different perspectives what the goal of the organization is. And the goal of Manna is to help people who have life-threatening eating disorders, and now we've added in trauma, to get the treatment that they need to live healthy lives. And so addiction is addiction.
Yes.
You can have a drug addiction. You can have a gambling addiction. You can have an eating disorder. You can have
behavior.
Yeah, well, but it can also be an internal. So even like obsessive compulsive disorder. So all of those things are stemming from a core issue. And they're ways to deal with your pain. And so because of Rick's history, which we're going to get into in just a second, I was thrilled and delighted to add him to our board. And so, Rick, why don't you kind of give everyone the understanding of what your addictive behaviors were about?
Well, that's one of those things where do you start? You know, in
At the beginning.
One of the things that I think is important, a lot of people look at addiction as a stigma. And they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it to anybody. They get into a recovery setting like AA or NA or
Manna treatment.
And they have a hesitation to tell their story because they feel like everybody's going to look down, everybody's going to judge them. And a lot of people do. I mean, I won't discount that because a lot of people do.
Right.
But the only way that people begin to understand is if people are willing to come out and talk about it. In a lot of ways, it's just like being gay.
Yep.
That is
Are you telling us something?
No, I'm not coming out of the closet, sweetie. No.
Sorry. One of my mechanisms in working with people is to help them breathe.
It's humor.
Absolutely. Humor and laughter makes us breathe. And so when things get deep, then I infuse a little humor in there.
Are you trying to tell me something?
About what?
Well, you said when things get deep, you try to lighten it up, and I was talking about, being gay, and I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just giving back to her what she gave to me.
Good try.
Karma is hell. No, but people have always looked at that. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to come out of the closet. They don't want people to know what's going on in their lives because people are going to look down on them.
Shame.
The shame factor, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're addicted to any kind of behavior or addicted to alcohol, drugs, eating, whatever. This is something that people have to come to grips with themselves first. And then if they're comfortable enough, if the more they share, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't look at it that way. They're scared to share it. And that's one of the reasons why I've tried my best in my 22 years now of recovery to be able to not feel hesitant about talking about it if someone asks. I don't run out there and blab to everybody what's going on, but if they ask me, I try to be honest with them and tell them, figuring if they didn't want to know, they wouldn't ask.
Right.
And so I guess that's why we're here today, to kind of share those feelings and talk a little bit about, I know in recovery setting you start with, my name is Rick Strawn, and I was born in 1951 in West Texas, where all the tumbleweeds blow, and went through the 50s. Personally, I had a lot of self-esteem issues coming up because I was very overweight. I grew up, had a lot of bullying issues that were bullying to me because of my being overweight.
Did you overeat?
I don't really know what I did, tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I just know that I was fat.
Well,
is the way I looked at myself.
Okay, so
self-esteem.
A lot of times when there are bullying issues, and what kids know how to do is they know, then that's what they can do.
Yeah.
And so we might say that potentially your addiction started when you were 8 or 10?
Oh, earlier than that.
And you were overeating. And
Yep.
because there's an immediate feedback mechanism when we eat. And so potentially you had an eating disorder. You might have had a binge eating disorder.
I acknowledge that.
Okay.
Because as I grew up, it didn't do it when I was small. It was a lot of self-esteem issues, and I'd eat, I guess, because of that, and which would create more self-esteem issues because the bullying started and all that kind of crap.
Right.
But as I got older, and I know as I went through and finally went on the police department, when I went through high school and started playing football and actually started exercising, then I lost a lot of weight. But you still have the self-esteem issues even when you lose weight. Which is, you think about it, you think, well, I've gotten all healthy, I've gotten, muscular, I've gotten trimmed down where I'm 180 pounds, 5'10", and it's all muscle, that type of thing. But you still have those self-esteem issues where you don't think that you're as good as anybody else. you still, in your mind, you still see those problems.
Right. And so what I'm gonna interject an interpretation of that, which is you fixed the outside, but the inside, which is what I call the core or the seed of the problem, did not get fixed by fixing the outside.
Absolutely.
And that is a huge, huge metaphor and situation that happens with people if they're overweight. They might develop anorexia at 300 pounds and lose weight. And because in the mindset, they continue to move the bar. So, all right, I've lost to 200. Okay, let's get down to 150. Okay, I've lost to 150. Let me see if I can get to 140. And so they continue to move the bar when they actually accomplish. It's like things are never good enough.
Correct.
So that is the essence of an eating disorder.
Well, and I say that I had that disorder among all the other crap that when I was growing up, one of the things that to tag over to the alcohol part, my parents used to have, we were not a wealthy family. We lived in a 2-bedroom house with my grandmother, my daughter, my sister, myself, 5 of us in a 2-bedroom house. Mm-hmm. So 3 of us slept in 2 twin beds. My grandmother and my sister slept in 1 twin bed. I slept in the other twin bed, and we shared a room, until we moved to Dallas, which was, going into the ninth grade.
Wow.
So, we lived in this small stuff, but we had parties through the group around our neighborhood we had like 3 families, 3 sons, 3 dads that always went hunting. So what they did is they'd have parties and they would drink. Mm. And of course, guess who got to be the bartender? And
Little
everybody
Rick.
knows that you don't hand somebody a drink unless you taste it and make sure it tastes right.
Right.
So I tasted a lot of drinks. I can remember.
And you were in the 9th grade.
I was earlier than that.
Oh.
This was
12.
Yeah, probably 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
Very, very young.
Okay.
I can remember one time my grandmother fixed me bourbon water, and it was fine. She fixed it for me. I was allowed to drink because they figured, don't keep them from it. They'll want to do it more later, which is an absolute ridiculous idea.
Right.
I can tell you firsthand. Then she fixed me the second one, but she was about 3/4 looped when she fixed the second one. So as a result, I think she confused the shot of water with all the booze, or with the shot. I think she ended up making it with a shot of water and all booze.
1/4 water
and it was
3/4.
So good. I remember my mom. I said something to her. We were outside. She slapped the hell out of me.
Oh no!
And I laughed about it and ran across and tripped. Oh, I've got to watch that hose. It was absolutely. She got very embarrassed because she ended up with a sick son in his bed, throwing up all over himself and everybody, everything on the sheets.
Was this the first time you'd ever drank?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
It was the first time I'd ever gotten drunk. But she was so worried about somebody walking into the bedroom and seeing her drunk kid laying there in bed with puke all over himself.
Yeah.
I didn't really care. I was totally passed out.
Well,
But that's just an idea of what came up and what transpired, getting to
how it started,
how it all started. And then I went for a lot of years, didn't do any drinking or anything. But then I started, on the back of the alcohol somewhere along as later in life.
So let me interrupt you again. We're kind of in a semi-therapeutic environment.
Well, hey, go
right
for
now.
it, baby.
All right, I know you're such a good sport. But what I like to say to clients is, you developed your addiction. So most addictions are developed around our attachments, and our attachments are always with people, right? But they get transferred to substances, so alcohol, food, behaviors, all that. So what you just told me is that your attachment pattern was developed around your grandmother and your mother and your family.
Dad and just the family.
So the attachment is, if I'm going to be a part of this family, then this is what I do.
Exactly.
And so that attachment pattern can have a lot of positive and some pain in it.
And even if it subsides and you go through years that you don't really drink, and you think there's no way I'm going to ever be an alcoholic because I don't like to drink.
Right.
then it works into other things. You develop that being fat.
The whack-a-mole game is what I call it.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Comes up here with alcohol, comes up, goes down, then it goes up.
Food.
Yep. Other things.
I always said if I'd ever really got into drugs, I'd have been an addict, because that's the mindset. I have an addictive mind, and no matter what I do, I have a tendency to overdo whatever it is I pick, and sometimes or whatever picks me.
So I'm going to tell you that your genetics are a huge part, right?
Absolutely.
And so, because we all have associations, we all have attachments, and so we can all get addicted to something, but genetically there is something different in people who really develop a struggle.
Oh, I totally agree. I learned that a long time ago.
And I'm not going to undermine or discount the impact of trauma and pain. Pain is always it's one of the stickiest things that we have. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to feel it. Nobody wants to deal with it. However, it is that thing that continues that behavioral pattern, and it that's what causes the destruction. Is undealt with pain.
No doubt. I know. I can remember one time when I was a kid, trying to get that attention, I guess is probably what it was. But I was waiting on my parents to get home because I was going to surprise them and shake them up and make them feel sorry. So I happened to stand out on something, and there we had an old elm tree out in the yard, and I put a rope around the elm tree and then the rope around my neck, and I was going to scare them.
How old were you?
Oh, I don't know, probably 9 or 10, I guess. And then I lost balance, and I'm screaming. Luckily, my grandmother heard me and came out there, and everything was fine. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking on the show, which is one of the reasons why I can't even stand a collar around my neck tight to this day.
Yeah, that was a very traumatic experience.
Very traumatic, very stupid. But I'll be honest with you, I never tried anything like that again.
Good.
I do other things to get attention. But that was something that, it's a wake-up call to yourself in a way, but how much can you wake up at 9 or 10 years old? I mean, it's just a bad experience at that point.
Yeah.
The trauma is just unbelievable to think of what you almost did. Of course, my grandmother and my dad solved the problem. He beat the hell out of me with a belt when I got home for doing such a stupid thing. But, you go through that, then you move into the food issues with all the weight issues even more, and then the down, and then the back up again. After I got married, I got fat again. But I had a tendency at that point, I looked at, bulimia as a possibility of getting that stuff down. So you eat like hell, you love it all, you just gorge yourself, and then you go get rid of it all in the toilet, and you think, well, that's okay. So now I'm still good.
So you're saying that not only did you start your addiction with food, and then it transferred to alcohol, and now you're telling us you were bulimic?
At one point, yeah. And
Wow.
I think any of these addictions that you have are always still there.
No, not always. There is a possibility of full recovery.
Well, yeah.
At least with food.
Okay. With alcohol, I think if you're an alcoholic, all you are is one drink away from being an alcoholic again.
Right.
And I don't know about the other part. You know about that part better than I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no desire to do any of that anymore. But the thought's always kind of like right now, I'm 30, 40 pounds heavier than I want to be. There's always that thought, well, I could just, anything I eat, I could purge and slowly get back to where I was. But, at the same time, don't want to do that.
Let me just say how amazing it is that you are willing to share this with us, because very, very few men will admit that they have issues like that, whether they're anorexic or bulimic. A lot of people in the world have an overeating disorder, and they kind of wear that. There's a lot of people also that have bigger bodies that have issues with their thyroid and hormones and different things like that, which is what the factor is. But for someone to come out and talk about, a man especially, How old are you?
I am now 69 years old.
Yeah, that's huge, Rick. That's a big deal. I just want to thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate it. I don't talk about that. I mean, I've talked about it twice, and both of them you've been involved in my life.
I just pull it out of people.
I know. God, you just slap them around.
Listen,
and
buddy,
I've
got Kleenex right
as
here.
they say, they just puke it up.
Yeah.
But, it's important. I think there's a lot of men that have that issue. And it's important they understand that, it's not that, it's not something that you can't talk about.
Right.
You just have to pick your audience, and why the hell I'm doing this on this station in this forum.
Because you trust me.
Hell no. Yeah, but all these other nuts out here that I talk to. No, just kidding. I'm one of them.
You're not calling your listeners nuts.
No. Well, actually, most of my listeners, they're good nuts. I love them to death.
Good.
They're nuts because they listen to me. But, it's one of those things where you kind of feel like you can't control it because of the weight issue, that you can't control your weight. You got to control it. And I think a lot of people that have addictions have a very controlling personality. They don't like losing control, and I'm not in control if my weight's high, or I'm not in control if I don't feel good, or somebody doesn't like me, or you got all these issues that roll around into one. And then as I went on and I really got into it. I think my dad I look back on it, and I can't say, and I'm not one to call anybody an alcoholic, but I look back on it. He spent a lot of time in his basement in his chair by himself. He always had a couple of bottles down there. And I'm pretty sure that through his life, he died at 49 on cardiac arrest.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty sure he had his bouts with alcohol. He did a lot of drinking. I remember everywhere we went, he drank. We had parties, he drank. I've seen him drink around a campfire when we're deer hunting at night after the hunt. Because we used to do that every year. We hunted in the hunting season, fished in fishing season. When I grew up in actually New Mexico, where we moved to from Texas, we moved to New Mexico, which is where all the other stuff happened. But I really think he had those issues. And I didn't realize it at the time. I realized it more as I moved forward.
So again, there's that attachment. You want to connect, and so it's really interesting because there's so, like you've just told us within about 20 minutes all of these really critical issues in your life that you don't typically share, that we don't talk about.
That's only the start.
And so, but the start, I want you to understand, the very beginning of it doesn't necessarily go away. Because there's this root core pain, this belief system develops as a result. Most of the time people think I'm not good enough, or I'm not okay, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not safe. I believe that there are two main factors that really push everyone's behavior. And one is the desire for love, and the other is the desire for safety. And there's only one other person, I can't remember her name, but she wrote a book about this, and somebody told me about it after I had started talking about it. So I believe that those are two core pieces and motivations in people to try and get their needs met. Are you going to love me, and are you going to keep me safe? And so I would say, look at your job.
Well, I was just going to say, think of those two core issues. I've had multiple marriages, looking for love in all the wrong places.
And all the wrong people.
In all the wrong people. And I went into police work. Into security. Because of the love and the security, both those two issues led me to where I went in life as far as personal and as far as professional.
And so when you couldn't get either one of those through wherever, you went to alcohol and you went to food.
Pretty much.
And
more alcohol. Food kind of it surfaced every once in a while.
Sure.
It was an issue, but it wasn't as big an issue.
Right.
But the alcohol became a very big issue.
And so when did you decide that it was a big issue, and what was your sort of point of transition from, I got to do something about this?
Well, basically, when did I hit my bottom? I was working with the police department, and
How old were you?
I was in my, I've been retired now 22, 23. I've been retired the same length of time I've been in recovery because I went into recovery after that. I managed to find myself sitting in a jail cell. As a friend of mine said, I knew I had an addiction to alcohol when I broke out in handcuffs. So, I'm sitting there in a jail cell.
Locked up, covered up, or sobered up?
Pretty much.
Yep.
And my attorney says, because I'd already been there for, had bounced in there once and come back out and was going to do the recovery thing and wasn't ready. It didn't stick. Went right back, twice as much. I mean, when you wouldn't believe, and I won't say, but you wouldn't believe the amount of alcohol I put down my throat. It's amazing that I have a liver. When I finally hit the cell the last time, it was for a DUI sitting in a parking lot, passed out.
Oh, wow.
In an apartment complex, in my apartments, in our subdivision. But I was sitting there all by myself, car running to stay warm because it was winter and it was cold, but I was asleep and all that. I had a .46 alcohol level. The doctor said, you should be dead.
Right.
And
almost half of your blood was alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
God
scary.
is watching over you.
Yeah, and to this day, I have no liver problems. I have no heart problems. The doctor said I'm a lot healthier than I should be by far. And God has granted me the luxury of being able to make it through all that without killing myself. But when you have your attorney say, if you don't straighten this up, if you don't do something and go into recovery, then I'm not going to represent you anymore. My wife says, if you don't do something and you don't get into recovery, I'm not going to stay. I won't be here. I mean, so I was going to literally lose everything. I was already on leave of absence from the first one with the police department, and I was using up all my sick leave, borrowing sick leave, vacation. I mean, I was doing all of this. So finally, that really hit home. My wife and my daughter, my stepdaughter, and myself sat down and talked about the issues. And
so was this an intervention?
No, it was really not an intervention as much as I think the intervention was when my attorney told me, you're going to sit there and with nobody coming to get you if you don't do this. So what we did is we talked about it, and do you want to fight to stay on the police department, or do you want to retire and try and go into recovery? And well, what I did, not really retire and go into recovery, but do you want to do something about it, or do you want to fight to keep your job? Or do you want to do so? We decided, and they said, we'll support you however you want to do it. If you want to go for the police department and your law enforcement career of over 25 years, we'll stand behind you and we'll be right there. And if not, we'll support you there too. So what I did is I went.
There's your love.
Yeah. And let me rephrase it. That little piece came after what I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
When we were down there and I came out, I decided I had to do something. I didn't know what to do. So there was a place called the Hickey House, which was a recovery community up in Helen. And they had several houses. They had the Blue House, which is right there where you turn off to go to the falls in Helen. There's a big house right up there on that corner that is a recovery house. And
Are they still there?
Yeah. They're still there.
I've never heard of them.
We called that the Blue House because it was painted blue.
It's blue.
But they had that. They had a house in Toccoa. They had several Clarkston. They had several houses within their community. And Hickey was a recovering alcoholic, and he was a Yankee from New York he was tough as nails, and he was rough. Well, anyway, long story short, I went ahead and agreed to go into the Hickey House. And I spent 3 months there.
Good.
And it was a long 3 months. But, I went through this 3 months, and
I'm gonna ask you a question because there's a lot of people that don't understand the process of recovery. When the solution is just stop drinking.
well, that's what they say the solution is. In the end, it is about not putting alcohol down your mouth.
Okay, so why can't you just stop drinking?
What did I do to stop drinking?
No, why couldn't you just stop drinking? Why isn't
I
that
don't think
the
I really wanted to. It was my solution to the way I was feeling.
right?
I didn't want to
That
feel.
is your attachment.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
your
want to feel.
your attachment and your solution to the pain problem was to cover it up with alcohol.
I had a lot of depression. I was really feeling.
I just want
bottom.
people to understand that until you deal with that core, that root issue, the stuff is not going to change. And that's why, like, so many times people say, "Oh, you're going to ask me about my family and my childhood." I'm like, "Well, yeah, because that's usually where it starts."
A lot has to do with that.
Yes, and so we have to go back into the root core issue. And if we don't, we are just fighting a very difficult, not necessarily losing, but a very difficult battle. So
Well, I had a lot of family issues, and had issues with my stepdaughter, and there was a lot of stuff that it was just driving me into a hole of depression I couldn't get out of, and that made me feel better to just not feel. And the more I drank, the less I felt.
absolutely.
I mean, you don't feel till you pass out. Then when you wake up, it's easy to start. You
It
start
is
doing it again.
a central nervous system depressant.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
stops the feeling.
And so that was why I drank, was because I didn't like the way I felt, and I didn't like all that was going on. So I'd stay sober long enough to go to work in the beginning, and then eventually I would be drinking up until the time I went to work. Then I wouldn't drink at work. Then I'd drink when I got in the car. I'd drink going home.
Wow.
So it had become just almost 24-hour a day addiction.
Yeah.
I was doing what I could. I mean, when you get to a point where you'll have vodka in a container and have it like iced tea or something, and have it sitting in your car all day long in the summer, it is probably 120 degrees.
When you get done.
And when you get out of work, you have no problem drinking 120. I mean, it's nuts.
That's like
It's
a hot
just-
toddy.
Yeah, well, it was real hot. But it's just the whole thought process of being willing to do something like that and stay in that cloud, if you will. It's crazy.
Not hurting is the biggest deal that any human can deals with. And then the other part of that is the powerlessness to make it stop.
Yes. And what pushed me over that edge was everybody saying you're on your own. They did what I suggest doing when I went into something like the transport business where we transported teenagers and stuff. When it helped me to talk about it, to counsel young people about what's got them there, whether it was alcohol, whether it was drugs. A lot of them were just addicted to the behavior that they were displaying of, screw you, you can't make me do anything. And they were addicted to that. It made them feel good, made them feel important. So I had chances to talk to them while we were in transport. We might be going to Costa Rica, we might be going to Dominican Republic or Jamaica or Montana or New York. Wherever we were going, I was able to share with them a little of my life and what I had done and what it had taken me to. And it gave me a purpose to be able to try to help someone by sharing.
By mentoring.
And I think that ability to share on such a regular basis, outside of an AA room or outside of any of the recovery settings, being able to share one-on-one that someone that was obviously having issues. And actually, the people with the schools and stuff used to, talk about it. I was one of the only people that they ever saw actually get a hug from one of these kids that I had, quote unquote, kidnapped in the middle of the night to take to one of these recovery centers. I'm one of the very few people they ever saw get a hug from the kids. But it was because we could relate. Because I didn't treat them like going to whip, you're going to go, and I'm going to drag you. It might have started out that way, but on the car ride or on the plane ride or whatever, we had time to say, look, let me tell you a little bit about me. I get where you're at. And it's amazing how much that helped some of these kids get through the year process that they had in front of them of getting through this thing. Because the first 3 months that I was in recovery in the Hickey House, it was a big deal. And when I reached that point to where they said you can go and you can go back to work at 90 days, I decided that I wasn't ready. So I actually voluntarily stayed there another 90 days. So total, I was there 6 months.
Wow.
I became manager of the house, which I really didn't want to do, but he made me do. He said, you need this. You need to be the manager of this and take the responsibility to help you in your recovery. And
grow up.
Yeah, pretty much. Put your big boy pants on.
There's a lot of growing up that you have to do in recovery.
God, you aren't kidding.
Taking responsibility.
Well, and that helped, I think, really, because I came back. I had a lot of crow eating. I mean, I felt when I came back to the police department, it was different. People treated me different.
They had respect for you?
They respected the fact that I did what I did, but that was still like on the outside looking in. They wouldn't give me the positions that I was always the person they called in to fix everything. And I became the person that just kind of shoved off to the side while we were waiting on all this transition to, are they going to keep him? Are they going to not keep him? What are we going to do with him? How are we going to work him? And that's what really made me decide that it wasn't worth fighting for as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's time to retire and move on.
And you were a police officer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a sergeant in criminal investigations.
Wow.
25-year veteran.
Dun, dun.
Yeah. Just the question, just the facts. But, and I loved my career. My career, I wouldn't do it again right now based on what's going on today.
Oh, yeah.
But it gave me the ability to understand myself a lot. I worked so many different, I was in 2 years and about everywhere I was there about 2 years, and they moved me somewhere else. I get it just about ready where I could kick up my feet, relax, enjoy it. Things are running just like I want to. And say, well, fantastic. We need you to go over here to homicide, or we need you to go to burglary, or we need you to go to auto theft, or larceny, or child sex crimes, or whatever. And, it was just, I looked at it at one point of, why can't I stay in one place like everybody else? But as I got through and moving along through the years, I said, this is the best thing that could ever happen to me. I got 2 years of understanding in almost every unit within the Criminal Investigations Division or the Special Investigations. I worked major violator narcotics with DEA for 2 years. It was awesome. There were so many interesting assignments that I had, and as a supervisor and as a sergeant, I got in control of what was going on, got to read all the reports. Whoa, what a benefit. But it was able to let me see some of the other stuff that was going on. But when it came time to make a choice, it made it easier to understand that things would never be the same as they were.
On the police force.
On the police force.
So there was a sense of it disrupted your love and your safety.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, went out, decided to try to do something with our business.
Well, let me just say something. So that sense of being awkward, right? So what it sounds to me like is that the people at the police force, on the police force, felt awkward. They didn't know, they didn't understand. They didn't know if you were a ticking time bomb.
Correct.
And this is one of the things that I am trying to help through my show, Food, Faith, and Feelings, is helping to reduce stigma. I want people to understand, because when people understand, there is this sense of connection. Because if I understand what's going on with you, because there's something in my background that I can connect with in that. And so trying to help people understand what other people are going through and gives a sense of compassion, and it reduces the awkwardness, it reduces the shame, and it reduces the stigma.
Oh, I don't disagree at all.
So that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Well, I had one of the commanding officers, when I was going through all this, she said, I just want to tell you that I really appreciate the way that you have tried to keep a smile on your face. I know what you're going through, and I know what's happening, and I really appreciate, most people would not have reacted that way. They would have been angry. They would have been whatever, but
she understood.
She did. She said, you always keep a smile on your face and try to handle everything in the situation that you're at with a positive attitude. And
That's
I said,
awesome.
That's all I can do. I mean,
so she respected you probably the most.
She did, and it was somebody that I didn't like to be, before, but it was
Don't
somebody
you hate that.
I know.
You're just wrong. Oh, damn it! I was wrong about that person.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's the one person that came to me and said that, and I really appreciated it.
What a gift is what I was going to say. Is what a gift.
Absolutely. So then went out, did the transport thing. Once I started in recovery, God put the transport thing in my life for a reason.
Yes.
I had so many flight miles. I was Platinum Delta and all. I mean, I had 5 teams around the U.S. working transports. And I used to laugh because I said, I know that now that God really does have a sense of humor. When I was drinking, nobody would give me a free drink. And now, every time I fly, everywhere I go, all the booze is free. And I don't drink. So
He's
I can see him up
testing
there.
you.
I can see him up there laughing. Here's all this free booze. But I was in the crown room.
Could have been Satan testing you too.
Exactly. It very well could have been.
Definitely.
I'm thinking Satan was testing me. God was having fun.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah, he was laughing about it.
Right.
But I look at it, and then we just decided. I put out resumes and all this kind of stuff, and actually had a company call me. And I went in for an interview, then went in for a second interview, and they said, well, we're going to move on. We appreciate you coming and all that. Well, I went home, and I said, we decided then, let's see if we can make a business out of the business that we've had since 1988 with police officers and all. Let's just see if we can do it. And then I got a call back from that same company wanting me to come in for the third interview. And I thought about it, and I made the appointment. And Susan, my wife, and I talked and said, do you really want to go back into a shift work where you're a supervisor over a bunch of people? This was going to be over a bunch of union people. And I said, not really. She said, well, then why do it? Let's just go. So I called him back and said, I really appreciate it.
What a relief.
I really appreciate it. I know that obviously after sending me away but then calling me back in for a third interview, you're getting ready to hire me. But I don't need to waste your time and my time by coming in there to do your interview knowing I'm not going to take the job. So they said, I really appreciate that. If you ever change your mind, give us a call back. I've never made the call. Our business is through scratching and nail biting and everything else has managed to survive and grow, and we are where we are today. And I love the helping people. I think giving back, and that's why I did on my radio show that I do. A lot of it is nonprofit because giving them a forum to be able to come on and talk, and be able to tell what they do, and maybe get them to people that they need to be talking to, or that people need to be talking to them. That gives me a lot of pleasure, but a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah.
I love doing that. It makes a big difference. That's the giving back part. God has blessed me.
That's the last part of the 12 steps of recovery, right?
Absolutely.
The last 3 steps, I think, is all about giving back.
It's all about giving back. It's all about turning everything back over to God.
Yeah.
And Him setting you free. So,
that's awesome.
I'm glad to have you coming on and sharing this time spot with me. I'm excited. I think you're going to do great. If you can get me to talk about all the crap I just talked about, you ought to have a great show. You ought to be able to get anything out of anybody.
Well, I'm pretty, after 20-something years, you get pretty good at something. So here's my thought, is in 2 weeks when I do my second show, because you have shared so much with me, I would like for all of our listeners, because I'm going to share these listeners with you, for you to do the same with me. and because I have a recovery story.
I know you do.
I have it's the bones of why I do what I do now, and really just to share like what my heart is for the Food, Faith, and Feelings show, in case people want to come on and be a part, if they want to sponsor, if however they want to connect around this. I would love to be able to share all of that with them.
Well, the 17th, I have a show that's already set.
Okay.
Because that's at the Valor Awards for all the law enforcement and public safety people.
So this is your show. Is my show next week then?
Your show is next week.
Oh.
See, this was my show. Now your show is next week.
Can we do this next week then?
If you want me to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I can do that.
Okay.
They may get tired of listening to me, but I can do that. I'm just
kidding. They've been listening to you for, 3 years?
Yeah.
And apparently you're like the hottest thing coming out of Gwinnett County.
Well, I appreciate all the people that listen to me and share. And everybody, please share all these RadioX things when you see them on there. Hit like and share. It helps so much in getting people's information out and getting their message out. And like I say, mine's not all about getting business. Mine's more about giving help. So
yeah.
And,
well, you're definitely a huge support of Manna continued.
Absolutely.
And I really, really appreciate you sharing your time slot and your listeners. And it's just a huge, the word manna actually means gift, gift from heaven, gift from God. And so you're being manna to me.
Well,
so
I appreciate it. The work you do, not to keep patting you on the back, but the work you do is awesome.
Thank you.
I've seen you grow so much over the years.
If you saw the financials, you would be so proud.
Oh, I can remember as being president on your board. Everything was tight. We were really pushing, trying to get somebody to help out, get somebody to donate, just trying to make ends meet.
Yep.
To help grow. And now you're looking at so much growth.
Yeah.
It is just awesome. The help that you're able to give people is just amazing.
Thank you. Well, it is because of God. So I appreciate it.
Well, folks, I could probably, if I told the rest of my story, we'd be here about another hour and a half. So
we've almost gone an hour.
We've almost gone an hour. I hope that we didn't bore anybody. I don't think that there's too much to be bored about when you listen to somebody spill their guts, but sometimes it just works out. And I hope that anybody that's listening that has an issue, has some type of an addictive issue, please look at getting help, whether it be through a recovery center, whether it be through going to AA or NA or giving Manna a call. Go get help from somewhere. Sit down and talk to somebody about it, because it can change your life. It really can. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to always be a hole. If somebody said one time, the best way to not dig the hole any deeper is to put the shovel down. Sometimes you just have to put that shovel down, or that drink down, or that drug down.
Pride,
or sometimes
shame.
Put the pork down.
Yeah.
But you need help on the inside of your head. It's not just the outside stuff that you're doing. You got to get the help on the inside of your head so that you want to quit. Because if you don't want to quit, you never will. Well, thank you for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. And remember that you can join us live on Wednesdays at 11:30 in the morning. And you'll also be able to join Food, Faith, and Feelings with Dr. Genie Burnett every other Wednesday. I'll be on one, she'll be on the next, and we're going to swap out and see if we can't reach a whole lot more people.
So I'll see you next week. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I'll be here. Or you can listen to our show anytime you want by going to businessradiox.com and clicking on the Gwinnett Studio, then click on Case in Point. And again, please hit that subscribe button for us so that we know you're there. Join us next week at 11:30 when Dr. Genie Burnett will be talking with Rick Strawn again. Or actually, Rick Strawn will be talking with Genie Burnett on Genie Burnett Show. And if you're not confused, stick around. You will be. But anyway, we'll get together then, and be sure and listen in on the 17th when we transmit from the Valor Award Show at the Infinite Energy Center. Major Chris Smith will be on there with me. He is over the Criminal Investigation Division. Going to be a lot of really interesting stuff going on there. We'll talk to him. Thanks again to my guest, Dr. Genie Burnett.
Thank you.
And for our producers, Mike and lovely Amanda. And I am Rick Strawn. And remember, at Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.